So Carolyn, my wife, said that she's not going to do this anymore. As you know, 3 years ago we moved on this property, staying in a little truck camper that we built. It sat on the back of this Chevy Colorado 4-cylinder. We traveled around the country for, I guess, 3 years. Then we moved here, took that truck camper, set it down. I've explained all this before, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. We stayed in that until we got this tiny house built. And we got it built by January, so it was 1 year, almost 1 year. We got here in March, and then the next January, we were able to move into this. The water system wasn't really ready for winter conditions yet. I did the best I could in the short amount of time that I had. The second year I did much better, refined the process. But in this box there's a 275 gallon IBC tank that holds water. It's a food grade IBC tank. And we pump water into the house through an RV pump. Well, that first year it froze. Since that time, I've worked very diligently to identify things that I needed as a backup, so we wouldn't have to do without. We probably went out, I guess, 2 weeks without having running water in this. So we used buckets of water, and I'll explain all that. But since then, we've refined the process. We got this where it doesn't freeze until it gets down to -4 degrees. And even at that, I might be able to resolve that issue, but 4 degrees, -4 degrees, that was pretty impressive. I was very happy with that. We have an RV pump that pumps water into the house, into a water heater. Now I always keep a backup to that RV pump. I have one on hand at all times. That RV pump, it goes out about once a year, roughly. Now, there is this thing in there that I just learned that you can turn over and get another year out of it. So it's actually designed, I guess, to fail after a year's worth of use. I don't know if all RV pumps are like that, but this one's fairly cheap. It's not too expensive, $38, so $38, I may not even be that much, maybe like $30. Of course, it always goes out at the most inconvenient time possible, but when is there never an inconvenient time for the water pump to go out? The only time you're using it is when you need it. So it goes out when you're in the shower or something. But one of the things I try to establish in my head is how long can I live without it, and how long does it take to replace? For example, the RV pump, I can't live without it very long. She's in the shower. She's gonna need a water pump soon, so it's not like I can order a new one and have one delivered in time. So what I normally do is, she'll stand in there and she'll say, hey, the water pump's going out, and I'll jump out here, and it takes me maybe 10 minutes to get it all changed over. So unfortunately, she's got to wait 10 minutes, which is longer than I want her to have to wait. I just don't like to see her suffer at all, ever. So there's just certain things that I think that she deserves. Running water at all times is one of those things. So I always have an RV pump on hand. In order to fill that tank, I have a well. I've showed you the well many times, and I've showed you exactly how I fixed it. It used to have problems, but now it doesn't have problems anymore. I figure that the well pump could possibly go out. It's a pretty cheap one. It was only like $150. You get it off Amazon. It's a 110 volt well pump. I've had this one in there 2 years, and I mean, I've replaced it, but the one I replaced it with is still running. It was a little bit too big. After I redid the well, it was a little bit too big. It was a 4-inch diameter well pump, and I was trying to slide it into a 4-inch pipe. So I got a 2-inch well pump, and I saved the 4-inch. The thing is if I took all the screens off of it and all the screws and everything, I mean, I've seen this on YouTube videos, I can use it in a 4-inch pipe, because it goes down like 3.5 inches when you get all those screws off and everything. So I decided I was going to keep that one as a backup in case this ever goes out. I can drop that one down there, or I can buy a new one. Remember, I only have to have a backup if it's going to take longer than what I need it for. So I have 275 gallons in the IBC tank. That would last me probably 3 weeks. We don't use that much water. So I could probably order a new pump, another 2-inch pump, have it out. I mean, I would have it out as soon as it broke. I'd start pulling it out. I'd go order one, pull it out, have it sitting on the ground waiting for the replacement to show up, pop the replacement on when it showed up, and drop it back down in the well. Let's say it took a week for it to get here. Well, we could live a week without water out of the well. Now, another thing that I've told you is it froze that last year at -4 degrees. but we still was able to run water. What I can do is I can take this hose, this RV hose, and I can run it through a window into the house. And I can hook it up to our water heater. The water heater is an on-demand camping water heater, and it uses propane. So when you turn the water on, the flame kicks on and starts heating the water instantly. You can adjust the temperature. So if the water were to freeze, the well will not, because that black pipe that goes down into the well, I've said many times, I've drilled a hole in it 70 feet down, just a small hole. And so when the well is off, that black pipe drains back down 70 feet. And so the pipe is empty, it can't freeze. So I can always get water out of that. Even if the tank out here freezes, I'll have to turn the light on. It's a little dark in here, so I apologize. All I have to do is disconnect this hose right here. This comes from the RV pump in the tank. Disconnect it. Run the hose from the pump into here. Turn the well pump on with solar panels or generator, whatever the case is. And now we got hot water. Now, if we don't want to run the hose in here and we just want to do dishes, as soon as that freezes up, I immediately start filling buckets of water, bring them in here, and let them sit. So now we have the water heater. I have it back up with one of these also. Again, how long can you live without it, and how long does it take to get here? Usually this goes out at a bad time too, I would imagine. It's never went out. We thought it went out one time, but it turned out it was the RV pump. So we took the old one, took it out. I saved it, I didn't get rid of it. Put the new one in, and that's when I realized the RV pump had went bad, because it was doing the same thing as the old one. Now the old one is down there in the camper where Carolyn's son was staying, but we could easily just disconnect it. I mean, it's not hard. You just disconnect this hose, disconnect the propane, remove 2 screws from the wall, and it falls down. This is very easy to operate. Well, it's so easy, it's a camping water heater. You can take it camping with you. That's the whole purpose of it. So I have a backup one of those. That way if we need water, hot water, it would take a week to get here. Well, we don't want to wait a week for hot water. Now, another thing that we have to deal with is heating our house. Now, it's very unlikely that anything would ever happen to this. There's a few things that can happen, and I won't explain all that. But the worst thing that could happen is the chimney catch fire, and I would have to replace the chimney. I would have to order parts or go somewhere and get them. And they're kind of expensive, and then it would take me a while to get everything replaced. So if the chimney caught fire to the point that it was damaged, I would have to replace that. That's the only thing that I could imagine that I couldn't get fixed right away. I have a buddy heater. Again, that's out in the camper where Carolyn's son was staying. And we can bring that in here. It heats this place up pretty good. It heats like 200 square feet. So if it wasn't massively cold, it would do all right. I think if we got down to -4 and this thing went out, we'd be in trouble. So this summer, we're going to get a blue flame heater. And we're going to put it out in the camper. But we, of course, could bring it in here if we needed to. And that's going to be a higher BTU. Now that's all propane. And we have, I think, 10 or 12, 20-pound propane tanks out there. The most that we ever have empty is 3. And then I'll take those in when we go grocery shopping and get them filled up. Now, the one thing that has happened, and I didn't have a backup to, but it happened during the summertime, is this glass can break. It's very fragile, extremely fragile. Now, it's not fragile to heat or cold. As a matter of fact, if you have this on and it's burning a hot flame and you drop water on it, it doesn't crack. But it doesn't take much to crack this. So I have a backup one of these. These are pretty expensive. I believe it was near $300 to replace that, I think. And I broke 2 of them in the same September. I was cleaning it, which I can see. I need to clean this. It's dirtier than I expected. Maybe that's on the outside. So have that up in the attic, and it only takes a few minutes to replace. Another thing that we have is this freezer to store our food. Now we also have a bunch of canned food that we could use. Prior to that, we had this refrigerator, and we thought it went out one day. Carolyn was actually packing food up. We just went to the grocery store. She was packing the food up, and I noticed it wasn't kicking on. She was putting food in it, but it just wasn't kicking on. So I thought it went out. So we was heading to the store to get another refrigerator, and she said, no, I want a freezer. So we bought the freezer. Well, it turned out, this thing kicked on a few days later. I plugged it in to see if it would work. So if worse come to worse and something happened, we could put some of our food in that refrigerator. The thing is again, I said, how long can you do without it? And how fast can you get it replaced? Well, if the freezer goes out, it's going to stay cold for a while, probably 12 hours. I probably wouldn't want it to not run for longer than 12 hours. But we can run down to Walmart. We got 2 Walmarts. Ironically, one's west and one's east, and they're the same distance apart. So we could go to either Walmart and get another freezer. Let's say something happened. It was snow on the ground. We couldn't get out, and this thing went out. Then we could always can the food. So we have 2 canners, pressure canners, and this canner meat or chicken. This is chicken here. We got reusable lids. These last 10 uses. I've talked about that many times. If you want to see my canning videos, go to my channel, go to playlist, you can see my canning videos. So we have 2 canners, in case something ever happened to one of them. Unlikely, I mean, they last forever. And we have 2 packages of O-rings. You're supposed to replace the O-rings every 3 years. So if anything happened to the O-rings, the seal of the lid and the little vent valve, I can replace that. So I always have a backup of that. It's not that I really need a backup. How long can you live without it? How long does it take to get here? I could live without this quite a while, actually. In the winter time, that'd be the only time that I can imagine the freezer going out and we wouldn't be able to go get another one. We have froze our meat in the cold temperatures. When it gets down into the teens, the meat will freeze. As a matter of fact, when we bring the meat home, we have to freeze it. Well, it's difficult to freeze meat in the freezer. It takes 3 days, so at nighttime I got to run the generator. But during the winter, we don't run the generator. We just take it outside and let it freeze in the cooler. And then when it's frozen, we put it in here. I don't have to run the generator then. Now, another thing that I've talked a lot about is having a backup to the house. I don't know how many people have a backup house, but we have always had a plan for a backup house. And the plan has always been we would get an RV. If this thing burned down, we would get an RV immediately. Spend whatever money we needed to and park it here. Well, now we have this RV here. Now we have the backup house. But the thing is that's not the end of the backup solution. We have a savings account. And if this house burns down, we would be able to replace it and build a new one, or go to Home Depot and buy one of those little sheds, you know, the sheds they sell. It'd be about the same price, actually. Which finally leaves us to electric. Now, we have solar panels, and our solar panels provide us, I would say, 99% of our electric. There are times that we have to run the generator, but it does and has powered both the house and the RV when Carolyn's son was here. As a matter of fact, the solar panels was able to power the air conditioner also. Occasionally we got to run this little generator. So this is a 1500 watt generator, and this one's just gas, and it can run our battery chargers. So if, let's say a hailstorm, I guess, came and busted up all the solar panels, then we could survive off the generator for a while. How long can I live without it? I could live without solar panels for a couple of weeks, actually, probably a good long time, as long as I had this generator. We lived in the camper, traveling around the country, and that's all we had was a generator. I'd start it up in the morning for 4 hours and in the evening for 4 hours. That's exactly what I would do here until I got new solar panels. Now, we do have another generator, and it's a dual fuel generator. So if electric went around here, let's say it was a tornado. I'm just using this as an absolute worst case scenario. Tornado came through, busted up our solar panels, and knocked out electric in the area. Well, then I do have those 10 or 12 20-pound canisters of propane. I could run our dual fuel generator probably for several weeks off that amount of propane. That's assuming that there was no solar panels. They got knocked out by the hailstorm and the tornadoes. I still got that generator. But now we're talking extreme situations. I think as far as electric, I got enough backups on electric that I absolutely have no concerns with electric. This last winter, the dual fuel generator just did not want to start. I wanted to run the well. Well, this year I've got that figured out. I don't even need the dual fuel anymore. I've got it put away, oil changed, carburetor cleaned, you know, dry, so it doesn't have any gasoline in it. I can run the well off the solar panels now. Carolyn has had a pretty rough life. She bought a piece of property years ago, 8 acres, lived there most of her life. They finally got a trailer. She stayed there for a while in a tent, and they got a trailer and parked it on there, and finally got a well, and you know, just over time everything built up. And you know, they would have to go out and get water from the state park, or I'm just not going to do that to her. She likes to have the comforts. Even though we're living off grid, she likes to have the comforts. I like for her to have the comforts. So I'm going to make sure she has the comforts. It's not that hard to have a few backup systems. So if you click this up next video, it'll take you to a video I made yesterday. So if I can inspire you to have a backup solution to all your problems, so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.